Hi, my name is Brett Hill with the Mindful Coach Method at themindfulcoachmethod.com. I wanted to talk briefly about the importance of mindfulness on the coach's side. I'm not talking about teaching people to be mindful. I'm talking about the mindfulness that you bring into your work with others and the capacity that you have to be mindful and present, because presence is actually one of the most important features of or characteristics and skills of a coach, according to the International Coaching Federation. It's one of the big ones. In fact, Magdalena Nook said that presence was the most important coaching skill. She said that in a talk at the Future is Mindful conference, which was one that I helped create last March. And in that talk on coaching and mindfulness, that was her statement, that presence is the most important coaching skill, and mindfulness is the means by which presence can emerge, so that mindfulness then is an exceptionally valuable coaching practice for coaches. Why? What difference does it make? It's because when you bring a very high quality of attention and the capacity to kind of note your own experience of the session, of yourself in the session and the client in the session, then that changes the framework, the context, the container for the session that you're working. And it changes it in really powerful, enabling ways. When you are present with your own experience of the client, so you're noticing what comes up for you as they present and talk about what's going on for them, then you're able to track what is you rooting for, what are you curious about, what do you have attitudes about, what are you have biases about, because we all do. We all have biases, attitudes that come up because we're human beings. We're just wired in a way where those things fire off automatically. And as a mindful coach, or I should say a coach who is mindful, you can observe those things arising in you and not necessarily buy into them. You can then what I call subtract emergent sensations that are coming from another bias or belief that are overlaying themselves into your experience of your client. So, for example, someone walks into your office or your session and they look very much, have you ever had this happen? You meet somebody who looks a great deal like somebody you know. And if you pay really close attention to what happens in us, our brains want us to see that person as the person that we know. We want to make them like that person because that makes our world make sense. Oh, here's a person that looks just like Marcus, and they're so much like Marcus. I can't believe it. And so do they talk like Marcus? Do they have the same attitudes and beliefs? We're looking for that to map it out, and there's a way we kind of wish they were, because that's what our brains are wired to help us make sense of the world. And so people who look like Marcus ought to be like Marcus. But they may or may not be, right? And so we do a disservice to our clients, and specifically who are paying us to pay attention to who they are, not who we wish them to be. And so consequently, that's just one, I hope, fairly clear example of a way that being present with your experience of your client can significantly improve your capacity to be of service. And there are many, many other values here. One is having the spaciousness in your own thought process, in your own stream of experience, to pause long enough to see ways to engage with your client and options that you might not see otherwise. Very often, a really excellent way forward with a client is kind of sitting right in front of you, but if you're moving too fast or you're operating on more of an automatic level, and I'm not saying that we all do it, right? We all do it. That's what mindfulness is about, helping us to not be on automatic. But if they say a key word that cues you off into, oh, well, there's all this, I have this library of knowledge about this key word, and you're not really listening, you might get distracted by the keyword, which cues up a lot of information in your inner library, your expert system, and you're so excited about the fact that they mentioned something that you know something about, that you miss that maybe when they said that, they had some somatic expression, like maybe sadness came over their face for a moment, or maybe they contracted or exhaled in some way. And if you notice that, you might push pause on, oh, I know a lot about this keyword, but really what I need to do is contact that somatic experience, that somatic expression, because they're telling you, there's, at least in a subconscious way, there's emotional content here that matters, that's associated with this subject. It might be worth exploring. You may miss that completely, and who knows? You contact that component, that nonverbal thing, particularly using the somatic techniques that are in the Mindful Coach method, and you find out that, yeah, man, that was a really rich way to explore their relationship to what we're talking about. So you'll find more ways to engage better whenever you are mindful than when you aren't. And so there's at least two things I've talked about there. One is that you're able to track your own inner work, your own inner experience, and adapt what you do and say and accordingly so that you can better serve the client, better see them, make an intention. Yeah, they look like Marcus, but I'm really going to try to see through that. I'm going to see them for who they are and really make an extra effort. And then also, you'll see more opportunities to engage with a client and possible paths to pursue. And many of those paths might be better paths than if you're operating so quick that you just miss small but significant expressions, often nonverbal, somatic expressions that are coming from the client. Sometimes when I'm working with a client, I myself will hit pause. I'll just say, I just need a moment to kind of take that in. I'll hear something and I'll go, there's something going on here that's behind the scenes, and I'd like to just organize myself around it. And I'll just say, let me just hang out for a minute and just be with what you're saying, and see what comes up in myself. And usually what I'm doing there is I'm creating space to notice where my curiosity goes. So that's the third thing that happens. When you're in this more mindful place, you give enough space to let your curiosity become a coaching skill that can often unlock new ways to work with your client. So we have those three things. We have the capacity to watch what you're doing based on, or to notice your own inner world and adapt to your own biases and judgments and beliefs. The second is you'll see more ways in the client to engage, see ways that they're expressing, and have an opportunity to connect with that through, we use a technique called making a contact with that, and then inquiring into it. And then finally, giving space enough, because you're being mindful, so there's a spaciousness here on purpose, to notice where your curiosity goes. So I'm not sure what's going on with this client. And because I'm not sure, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask a question about, so you mentioned this, can you tell me what's going on, what it feels like for you when you're in that moment? That would be more of a somatic inquiry. What does it feel like for you when you're in that moment? Not tell me more detail about it. Totally legit question, but rather, what does it feel like for you? And they may or may not have good skills of being able to do that. That's a whole other coaching story. But still, that's where my curiosity goes. What is happening for them in that thing that they're talking about? And that way, that helps me to get more information, to have a clear enough vision or experience of what's happening that I can then craft, coaching questions to help the client get clarification on the problem that they're working with. So there you have it. 3 ways that mindfulness is an exceptionally valuable tool for coaches. I'm passionate about this because I believe it's so important because it allows you as a coach to bring your best self to the session and be of service to your clients in the best way that you can. It's so powerful and doesn't cost you anything to develop. You just have to do it. And I believe is undervalued skill set and resource in coaching in general. So I'm making this video in an effort to underscore and emphasize that and encourage you as a coach to take up a routine, serious mindfulness practice, however you go about doing that. Of course, Mindful Coach Method is a big part of that in terms of what we're trying to offer people. But there are many, many, many other ways to go about just the basic skill set of adapting or learning, I should say, adopting a mindful practice. So please, please do the world a favor, do yourself a favor. Engage in a mindfulness practice on a daily basis, and you and everyone you meet will be better for it, or at least have the opportunity to be better for it. Best to you.